Welcome to the Love of the Star podcast. I'm Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, joined as always by former Super Bowl winning NFL scout Bryan Broaddus. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. He is also the pre- and post-game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network, and we are going to be doing something a little bit different today. Bryan and I co-hosted together on July 4th on 105.3 The Fan, and we talked about a number of Cowboys topics, and so we decided that we would just bring those discussions to you guys today for Love of the Star. And so this is a little bit different a format than we usually do, but we wanted to bring this to you guys as some bonus content for the July 4th holiday. So this was the first discussion we had. There's some news about Jerry Jones and a documentary on his life. And so we had talked about that on Tuesday morning. So we've talked about this already a little bit, that a NFL Films / Skydance Productions, Skydance Sports docuseries, 10-part docuseries.
Who's got Skydance, by the way?
I don't know.
Okay.
Is that like...
I was thinking maybe somebody famous, if it's like a Clint Eastwood kind of a deal.
I'll look it up. I'll find out for you. But Skydance Sports and NFL Films are working on this docuseries about Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. It will be a 10-part docuseries. It was announced in May, and we now know where it will be. Netflix has purchased the docuseries for $50 million.
How about that? Just keep printing money over there, don't we?
$5 million an episode?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's significant.
It is significant.
But look, if there was, I mean, you want to talk about figures in the sports world. Is there anybody, I think you'd have very few people, love him or hate him, there are very few people that I think I'd want to see a documentary about more than Jerry Jones.
Okay, you're absolutely right. And I worked for the man for 14 years. He is a fascinating person. Now, you can hate him for football things that he's done, but working for him, I owe him a lot. I owe that family a lot. They gave me 2 careers. They hired me on as a scout, and they let me work on DallasCowboys.com. So I still do work with DallasCowboys.com. So I really do appreciate everything the Jones family does. I hope that Netflix gets their money's worth from this, though. I'd like to believe this might be the one thing that people go back on and look at Jerry Jones' life. Yeah. Kind of a deal. That this is he is 80 years old, and I'm not trying to be morbid and all those things. But this might be the chronicling of his life, and I don't know how far back I want to go in that life, but
how deep.
Yeah, but he is a fascinating man, and there are things that he has done that I'm sure that they're not going to be able to get on Netflix.
Now, here's the thing that's very interesting about Jerry is. And you just kind of spoke about how grateful you are to him.
I'm very grateful to the Jones family. I really am.
There's a little bit of a perception at times, I know, we get here in the media where people go like, oh, you're scared to ask Jerry this or that, or, oh, you're only asking Jerry this because he controls all the questions. He's making you do this. I cannot tell you how far from the truth it is to say Jerry genuinely will not get in the way of things you want to talk about.
Not at all.
Media.
Not at all.
You as an employee on DallasCowboys.com,
he
tried to fire his head coach.
3 years.
Somebody he views as his son for 3 years.
3 years. He 3 years. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you how hard it is to work for DallasCowboys.com. And if you ever ask David Hellman this question, or anybody that's ever worked at DallasCowboys.com, they allow you the platform to be super critical when you need to be, but they also expect you to be fair. Those are the 2 things they ask. Be critical, but be fair about it. And that's the thing that I know for 3 years, myself, David Hellman, getting on airplanes, going with the team to places on road trips, we'd have to walk through the coaches section up there in first class. And every one of those eyes would turn to you like, oh, there are the SOBs that picked against us this week.
Yeah.
Oh, there are the SOBs that are trying to get us fired. Oh, those are the SOBs that are, talking about us in a way that maybe ownership, could deem, oh, they might be right. See, that's the thing that that is a very, very difficult job. You think working for the Cowboys is easy. It's not, because the Joneses allow you to make it to where you could be super critical.
Oh, Jerry wants essentially wants DallasCowboys.com. He wants it to be a news organization, and he wants unfiltered coverage. Yeah. He wants a genuine. He does not want a propaganda wing.
Not at all.
He is not Dan Snyder.
I'll never forget this. We were in Oxnard one year. This one was with DallasCowboys.com. It's probably 2-3 years ago. And Jason Garrett brings like all the staff, the people that are there like in marketing and DallasCowboys.com and all the people together, everybody but football operations people. So he's having this rah-rah meeting. And I looked at Derek Eagleton. I go, man, I do not feel good about being in this meeting. And it got to the point where Garrett actually took it personally, where he like, okay, everybody else of the team, of the group, got hoodies, got Yetis, got all the things. Mysteriously, DallasCowboys.com stuff all got lost. Couldn't find it. Didn't know where it was. That kind of thing. Like TV, all these people got like.
So everybody else, theirs were accounted for.
Everybody else's stuff was accounted for, but DallasCowboys.com. And I looked at Derek Eagleton and I go, hey, boss. I go, you know what? We don't need to do this anymore. We really don't. Because if we're gonna be critical of these guys, we gotta separate this. We can't be the rah-rah, that kind of. And we're part of the team and all that of the organization. But Derek agreed. And the next year we didn't go to the rah-rah meeting. Because like we felt like that it was more important to be separate from that. And give the type of coverage that the fans deserve.
Who do you think in that building, in the history of that building, when you were working at DallasCowboys.com, just despised you the most? It was like, oh, I want to punch Bryan Broaddus in the face.
Oh, Brill Garrett, Jason's wife, really hated me. Matter of fact, we were getting Larry Wansley, he was in charge of security for the Cowboys. Great guy. I'd worked with Larry in NFL,
legend
in NFL Europe. He was a spy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a legitimate legend.
He's a legitimate legend, spy guy. And so he set it up to where we could all get the global access to and we just all he had to do was go downstairs and register, and we got it. And man, it's just so easy to travel in and out of the country, or, TSA approved and all that. So Larry sets that up. Jason and Brill Garrett are down there getting set up the same time I am. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, Jason, that the hate smile was number one. She wanted nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me. And like the looks, comments, I knew it. I mean, you could feel it when people were, that they wanted nothing to do with you. The football operations guys were the same way, because when you fire head coaches, football operations guys then get fired too, because maybe they want to bring in their own Rob Davis or somebody like that. So those guys in football operations were looking for any reason to get rid of me. They literally were looking for reasons for me to move on. And hopefully trying to create opportunities for me to move on.
I sometimes wonder, just doing the beat, because this, we talk about them a certain way, and it's funny. Almost everybody on the beat has a story about somebody in the building, whether they're there now or not, just taking issue with something you wrote and just saying like, hey, come here for a sec.
Yeah.
And just saying like, I did not like that. That wasn't fair. And so you'll get some of that sometimes. I feel like it's gotten quieter since McCarthy went in there. I wonder if they just choose their, like, we're not even going to.
Well, the thing about it, I'll tell you, the one that I dealt with was, I've always told a story. I think people have heard this. Maybe if you're new to the program, welcome. The time that Jerry Jones confronted me in Valley Ranch.
Oh, yeah, when you're walking down the hall?
Walking down the hall, and he was coming right at me, and I'm thinking I'm just going to have a normal conversation with Jerry Jones. And I'm like, hey, Mr. Jones, how's it going? He says, hey, Brian, great. Good to see you. Hey, by the way, you're kicking my ass pretty good right now. And I go, and all I could say was, yes, sir. And he goes, but you're fair. You've been fair about it. Keep up the great work. Doing a great job. Love you on DallasCowboys.com. And I literally went to my office and closed the door and I started almost crying. I really did. Yeah. Tears were running down my face because I thought
anxiousness.
Well, that was it. Yeah. I thought I was done. But the Jones family, they totally will work with you on things. Totally work with you on things. But like I said, there are people in that organization that do. They don't like you. They don't like me.
Sure.
They don't like people that are questioning their jobs.
Yeah, which I get also from their perspective.
Yeah.
Like if we're in a certain position that if given our job, if somebody's trying to tell me how radio is supposed to go or this or that, there are times where it's like if you've not done the job before, right, how do you know what this job entails and what you're supposed to do? Right. So I get that same sort of understanding of like, you don't have my job, so you don't know what my job is. How can you? So I understand when they get frustrated by it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about it is you just got to get, you got to get used to knowing that that's going to be the case. That you're in a building where you're likely not going to be the favorite. A lot of people. I remember working in scouting and listening to guys like Todd Archer and Clarence Hill and guys like that, Calvin Watkins, Tim McMahon at the time. I remember those guys saying stuff about the team. And like people would be like at lunch kind of like bitching about, well, God, can you believe what Archer said? I'm like, he's right. Don't you guys realize he's right?
I think most everybody over there is of the opinion that most of the people I've ever encountered in the building are of the opinion that even when they don't like it, they're like, as long as you're fair, just don't be personal. Don't be snotty about it. Don't be a D. Basically. Yeah,
I've always felt like that if you have a problem with me, you could come up and tell me you have a problem. Jason Witten did that with me one time. Well, I told he grabbed me in the locker room and said, "Hey, come here, come here," and he dropped about 6 F-bombs on me, and I'm like, okay, and then I was part of the staff that drafted him.
Yeah,
and I thought he was a friend, but he dropped seriously. He went off on me for something that I wrote and said, but that's what Jerry Jones, and I hope the documentary, I know we're talking about Jerry a little bit. Mm-hmm. I hope the documentary really dives into who he is. And there's a lot of things you probably can't get into.
10-part series. Yeah. If these are hour-long episodes, there's going to be plenty of it. Apparently, there's going to be unused footage from NFL films from over the years.
There you go.
Look, I'll close with this quote that Rick Goslin told me one time, the legendary Hall of Fame voter, former Dallas Morning News reporter. He said Jerry told him very early on. He said, I got big shoulders. I don't care what you write about me. Yeah. He said, just as long as you spell Dallas Cowboys right in your headline.
Yeah.
That's what he wants. Is there such thing as a fan litmus test? And what I mean by that is there a question that you would ask a Cowboys fan that if they answered it a certain way, you would decide in your head, I'm not talking Cowboys football with this person, or this person isn't a real fan, or whatever else. This is something that came up on Reddit recently, and Brian and I decided to kick it around on Tuesday and get some of the thoughts from the listeners on it as well. This was a topic I had seen on Reddit, Brian, and I found it to be an interesting question that I thought we could kick around here with Tolos on the TruckRack.com fan text, 877-881-1053, 877-881-1053, and also get your thoughts on it.
By the way, this was when you gave me this topic, I really had a hard time with it. I'm interested to see how this is going to go.
Do you have a hard time with it because you're concerned about the idea of being the arbiter of truth? Like being like,
I didn't know how to really answer the question.
Well, here is the question.
The litmus test, right?
Yeah, basically. And we'll let you guys weigh in on the fan text. Like I said, the question
Maybe I'll figure it out as we go along.
What is a single question that you could ask another Cowboys fan where the answer lets you know whether or not you'd even want to engage in football talk with them? Basically, the question that just says,
I got one here.
All right, do you know what you're talking about or don't you? And obviously, it could be as simple as like, somebody saying, I don't know, something ridiculous. Like I mean, I know everybody's going to assume that I would jump straight to, well, if you think Dak sucks, then I can't help you. I can't help you if you think Dak sucks. This actually inspired me because somebody I remember years ago, it was not even a Cowboy fan. Somebody said their litmus test for talking to an NFL fan of understanding of, do you watch the games and understand the games, or are you just taking talking points and kind of doing that sort of, they said their litmus test was Romo. That if somebody said Romo sucks, then it made them say, okay, you don't know football. I can't talk football with you. If you think Romo sucks, I can't talk football with you. And that was somebody who was not even a Cowboys fan. That was just an NFL fan that I knew. But I'll let you go first since you've got an answer. What is your question?
I think if I asked you a question about Malik Hooker, and you told me that Malik Hooker's like, boy, you could really do some great things with Malik Hooker at safety. I don't think you're watching the Cowboys play. I really do believe that they need to be better at free safety. And if you're one of those guys or gals that are super positive about Malik Hooker, I don't know if you're really watching the defense play.
I don't know that I'm super positive about Hooker. I feel like Hooker doesn't.
Am I too critical of Malik Hooker? I mean, I do feel like he is one of those guys that needs to be replaced on the defense. I
think you could get better there. I don't know that you're going to easily get better there for the dollar amount.
It's weird. There's this weird.
He's inconsistent. There are times where he's good, I think, and then there are other times where he's just, I have no idea what he's doing.
I kind of feel like, man, this might be just a way out of, swinging out of the box kind of a thing. I kind of feel like I'd rather see like Jordan Lewis move to free safety. And maybe the physical traits aren't there for a free safety.
I mean,
I feel like he's super smart. He sees the field well. He tackles well enough. You can match him up. If you're going to use Wilson and Curse
as their box guys,
as those box guys, that maybe you could play Lewis deep. And if he's always kind of around the ball, that's what I really like about him.
He's got good ball skills. I think he was all-state wide receiver when he played at Cass Tech in high school. So, I mean, Jordan Lewis played receiver in high school. He's got ball skills. He is physical. He's smaller, but he has no fear.
If you told me Israel Mukuamu is not really a good player, as a bust, I don't think you're watching the game either.
Now, I don't know how much you would have gotten a chance to have seen him, but when we see him, he looks good.
Yeah, we have we're fortunate we get to watch him in practices and stuff like that, and you can kind of see him move around. You can see him play in the slot, and for a tall guy, he's got the range and the ability that you like. But if you told me I could do without Israel Mukuamu, I kind of feel like that maybe you're really not watching the game. Because I think there's going to be a place for him on this defense. I think they're going to figure out a role for him, maybe in that sub package where we talk about the nickel, the dime, the 5-6 defensive backs coming on the field. This is where I think Israel Mukuamu might be one of those guys, especially in the dime stuff.
Here's the question that I would throw out there. Do you think Terrence Steele should be the starter at right tackle? If the answer's no, then then I don't know that you're watching the games. I think you're living off of Tyron Smith's previous reputation, and you're thinking he's still the same guy, or you're thinking, well, he was good at right tackle last year. He wasn't. He was not good at right tackle last year.
He really wasn't.
Now, that's why I say I narrow it down to Terrence Steele starting at right tackle, because I don't want to say, if you think Tyron should start at left tackle still and Tyler Smith should play at left guard for now, I disagree with that, but it doesn't mean I can't talk football with you. If you just flat out think the tackles should be Tyron at right and Tyler at left, it's I don't know what you watched last year. And I don't know what you've seen that tells you that's the way it should be, other than you're just going off of reputation and things like that. So that would be the one for me. A couple of the answers that we're getting here on the truckwreck.com fan text. Let's see what you think about these, Brian. First one, the Alec Medford special. Name the teams in each division. So they feel like if you can't name the teams in each division, they're not going to be able to talk football with you. Cowboys question here. Does Dak actually suck, or do you just hate the guy?
I think there's a lot of sports hate going on there with Dak. Well, I don't think there's anything you could say negative about Dak as off the field or leadership or anything like that.
What's his floor? If you were to rank the quarterbacks in the NFL, what's his floor to you? Top what?
Oh, I think he's top 8 quarterback.
So would you say if somebody says if somebody tries to argue he's outside the top 15, is that something you go, okay, well, I can't talk football with you?
No, I can't.
And that's where I think that we all have disagreements about where he ranks. I would think it's silly to have him outside the top 10. If you have him outside, for me, the top 12, I'm like, you're really stretching to try and find 12 quarterbacks you could find that are better than him.
I can understand being critical of him.
Mm-hmm.
I can't understand the hate for him as a player.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I totally get it.
I mean, if you want to be critical, and I feel a lot of his shortcomings are due to his absolute overtrust in guys that let him down, like the Noah Browns, the Michael Gallups.
Mm-hmm.
There were several guys, and he just kept saying, you know what, I'm just going to keep throwing you the ball. I'm going to keep trusting that I'm throwing you the ball, that it's going to work out.
With Gallup, do you think basically that was something that did he have the right amount of trust in Michael Gallup pre-injury, and then when the guy came back and he maybe wasn't the same with after the ACL, do you think it's possible that just Dak maybe didn't adjust quick enough, or Dak went, oh, okay, this isn't the same guy I developed trust with?
Yeah, I think that's the bigger issue. I think he was happy to see 13 back out on the field. I don't think 13 was ready to play last year. And I think Dak is one of those guys that if you're lined up in that huddle with him, he is going to find ways to get you the ball. And he didn't go away from that fast enough, like Noah Brown and others. I mean, it should have been like just feed Schultz, feed Lamb, feed Pollard if you can, but he should have pivoted quicker away from those guys that were causing him turnovers.
Next one here, we've got from the 281, the people who always talk about how many criminals are on the Cowboys. That's kind of an expired take.
That's one. That they're absolutely right.
If you're just like, all they do is they have all the crooks. Yeah. That's not.
They keep reverting back to the White House days.
They had a bad stretch.
They did.
No
they
doubt.
Absolutely had a bad stretch. But I think it started to kind of turn around in the Garrett administration, and they've had far less problems under the McCarthy administration.
Here's a really interesting one from the 817 and we're talking about litmus test questions, like the questions you would ask a Cowboy fan that their answer would tell you if you feel like you can actually talk intelligently with them about football. The person who still blames Jerry for everything.
That's very convenient to do.
Because he's somebody who I think it was more relevant maybe 20 years ago than it is now.
Absolutely.
He very much delegates and submits to consensus.
Yeah.
I think he will pull rank every now and then, but it's not a ton. I think there have been plenty of times in recent years where he has not agreed with what the consensus said, but the consensus said something. He went, I'm trusting you guys. We're doing it this way.
Yeah. He is very, it's almost low hanging fruit too, because it's the easiest thing when things go bad. It's easy to blame Jerry. It's a lot harder to really dig in and figure out, well, wait a minute now. The offensive line coach doesn't really like this guy, or the running back coach is, the whole thing with Malik Davis and the things that we were learning about Malik, everybody's like, why weren't they playing Malik?
Yeah.
Why were they, what's the problem? Why, Pollard goes down and so you start blaming coaches, and maybe you should have blamed the player a little bit, if you dig in on things, but Jerry is the very low hanging fruit that you can blame everything on.
Next one here, 575. If someone still sees Ezekiel Elliott as a lead back in the NFL.
Yeah.
Do you think that's an expired take? That makes it say, all right, you're kind of going off reputation there than what the tape says about that player.
Yeah. I think that you can clearly, but man, how about the times on fourth down on the goal line and they run Pollard in there 3 straight times. He gets stopped all 3 times. And then what they knife Zeke off the left side, and he falls forward and gets in the end zone, and you're kind of like, okay, that's not underrated. That's not an underrated skill he has right there. Finding a way to finish forward when everyone else is getting stopped or knocked sideways or not getting any yards.
817, and I believe this is in reference to whenever there's a strong supporting cast, but it says, when people say anybody can play quarterback, they must have forgot the years after Troy. That was a rough time in my life. So whenever they say anybody can win with the supporting cast.
Trust me, I lived that whole thing with after Troy. I would have trust me, I would have done anything. In this day and age, the way that you're able to kind of get quarterbacks and like high caliber quarterbacks, and man, if I'd still probably be in the NFL if we still were able to get guys like they have today. You get Aaron Rodgers, my gosh, I'd have, tell him what I would have done to get a guy like Aaron Rodgers to help us after Aikman.
817, the Romo was a bad quarterback guy, or the Romo was a choke artist guy. Romo carried some bad teams at times. That's also one that, like, look, I mean, I make
anything Romo is probably a take.
I make jokes about Romo a lot, but like, I mean, absolutely, like, Romo got far too much hate and became incredibly underrated, I think, during his playing career.
There are things that he deserved.
Sure.
There are things that he clearly deserved. If Romo was ever the leader of Dak Prescott, that he would have, there would have been, that team would have been probably a lot different. Outstanding player, but I don't feel like that. Tony became very much him and Jason Witten. It was a very, very small group. And
clicky.
Very clicky. And then all of a sudden, 2016, Dak comes in and Romo's trying to have hey, let's have a party at my house and all that. And the guys in the room are looking at each other like, whoa, wait a minute, when did this all start? Yeah. Dak is, the leadership qualities of Dak are rare. And if Romo ever had those, man, I think he would be even more highly respected by fans because he didn't have the leadership qualities that Dak has.
This is something we talk about sometimes on the morning show with Sean and RJ, because people always default, obviously, to the leadership qualities with Dak. And I know that Sean and RJ's argument is, they say it's like talking about a girl and you say, well, she has a great personality. What you're saying is she's not pretty. That's what Sean and RJ say. It's like when you talk about the leadership.
But he doesn't play pretty. So, that's the thing about it. He's not a pretty player. He makes mistakes and he's aggressive and he to a fault. I mean, a lot of his undoing happens to be because he trusts people around him. He trusts these receivers. He trusted Kellen Moore. Now they've got rid of guys. He trusted Doug Nussmeier. They got rid of him.
Nussmeier. That was. Yeah. I think that was the one. So you've been around enough rooms. I feel like every quarterback in the NFL needs somebody in the room who can tell them, sit down and shut up.
Exactly.
And Nussmeier was Dak's sit down and shut up guy.
Yeah.
And not that Dak's an incredibly difficult player or anything like that. I don't want to say anything like that. But quarterbacks obviously sometimes get frustrated.
Settle down.
Doug Nussmeier was the guy that Dak respected and said, all right, Nuss. All right, yeah, you're right. I need to calm down. All right, you're right. I need to just sit down. The voice
of reason. You need a voice of reason in the room.
Every quarterback needs it. Yeah. I mean, that was something that, when Brady loses his mind or when a quarterback starts going off, it's that famous clip of Peyton Manning going after Jeff Saturday.
Yeah.
And I think it was. Who was it? Was it
tackle? The real good tackle, 78.
Was it Tariq Glenn?
It's Tariq Glenn.
And so he got up and he's like, sit, and immediately he's like, all right. He's like, all right, I'm calm. Like, you need somebody on the team. And that was Nussmeier. Nussmeier was the guy who would say that. I think that was a bit of a mistake there, but bringing that all back, Romo, absolutely. I think was Romo a good player? Whenever anybody says he was a bad quarterback, it's like, okay,
no, really
you're following lazy narratives that don't add up to the reality at all.
Good player and questionable leader, as far as his teammates believed.
Okay, so since we were on the radio, we didn't get a chance to do a Dean Julia Love the Star mailbag, but we did something a little bit close to that. Bryan Broaddus had a few Cowboys questions for me to answer. And we kicked around a couple topics facing the team, some either or stuff, some fill in the blank type stuff. And so we discussed the Dallas Cowboys and some of the pressing questions heading into the 2023 season.
Krusty's Corner question number 1 for Robert Belt. Why do we trust Dan Quinn and not Mike McCarthy?
Because the last time we saw Mike McCarthy doing what he's going to be doing this year, it was a failure. And you had one of the most prominent players in the NFL, somebody who's considered a very high IQ player in Aaron Rodgers, who was very clearly openly critical about the things that he was doing. I think there was similar skepticism about Dan Quinn when he first got here because people thought of how things collapsed in Atlanta, not just in that Super Bowl. As you've said, you talked to somebody in Atlanta who said we were all 10 minutes away from us they were all 10 minutes away from all getting 5-year contract extensions. Yeah, from having streets named after them, probably.
Yeah.
And so I think that just the way it ended, the Cowboys helped in 2020, helped kind of put the nail in the coffin on Dan Quinn's career in Atlanta when the Falcons blew that lead in week 2 against the Cowboys. So I think there were similar questions about Dan Quinn. It's just this is 2 years now where he's shown what he can do and he's earned the trust. And so I think the difference is Dan Quinn has given you something tangible that you can look at and say, we need to trust this guy. And at times where there have been questions about what they were doing or what his approach was, we've come away from it and in the end said, no, he ended up being right. And so we've got to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I think you're completely on to that thing. I think there's just so much unknown right now with the offensive coaches. And I want to trust Mike McCarthy, and I want to believe that 70% of the offense stays, and him and Brian Schottenheimer and the others have kind of figured out what the other 30% is going to be, hopefully mix in a screen game.
Yep.
Some deceptives there.
Hey, Jeff Blasco, the new running backs coach, I think that's definitely something he wants to have happen.
I think we interviewed him, and he was like...
It was a good interview.
I said, I'll throw you a parade down Main Street over here if you just find a way to get a screen game going.
Boy, he is a fiery guy.
He is a really fiery guy.
You can hear him on the practice field every time. I love it. Him and Robert Prince both.
I hope at the end of it, though, we can trust Mike McCarthy.
Absolutely. I think that's what's best for everybody.
I hope we can trust Mike McCarthy.
I want Mike McCarthy to be successful because it means the Cowboys were successful.
All right. Bobby Belt, question 2.
And you guys can weigh in on the truckrec.com.
Yeah, feel free. Read those.
877-881-1053, 877-881-1053. And 940 says, I asked that question a lot. We trust Quinn after he literally drafted the Falcons into a bottom feeder. And so it's a fair question.
All right, Bobby. What if Mozzie Smith is just okay?
Oh, I'm going to ask you to expand a little. What if Mozzie Smith is just okay in 2023? Or what if Mozzie Smith for his career is just okay?
At 2023. Do you expect him? Do you expect him to be better than okay? And I mean, you know, when I say okay, it's maybe a terrible question.
No.
But what if he's just okay? He's just okay.
Okay is better than what you were getting at a lot of times from your one techniques in the run game.
Sure.
And so is it a disappointment? It might be a little bit, but okay is still an improvement. And look, I think that it's funny. Mozzie Smith and Derek Lively have some interesting little parallels here. Derek Lively, the Mavs first round pick, in that for the questions about, well, how much can they develop into this? How much can they do? How much can Mozzie Smith do the pass rush part? How much can Derek Lively develop the offensive game? How much can they do the sexy stuff? And it's like, okay, but here's what you got to understand is that right now, today, the day you picked him, Mozzie Smith instantly became one of your best run defenders.
Yeah.
The day you picked Derek Lively instantly became your best interior defender. So those are the things where it's like, hey, look, at the very floor here says you've improved. And so take that improvement and bank on the upside. So if he's just okay, which is totally possible, he's still a raw player. I think that just okay is still a little bit better than what you were getting in terms of run stopping at the one technique, but it would be a bit of a disappointment. But it's probably going to take a little bit of time with Mozzie.
I just want Mozzie Smith to be, when we get to training camp, that he's like playing really well with his hands and he's active and he's up the field, and maybe a rep or two he's kind of getting the best of Zach Martin, you know, that kind of, or he's beating Broaddus on a reach block, you know. That's what I want to see.
Here's an interesting point brought up from 214, and I'll kick this question over to you. Is okay Mozzie better than Tristan Hill?
Oh, yeah. No
but
question.
Didn't we also feel like Tristan Hill at the very least would be okay?
Yeah.
Like at the very minimum, he'll be okay. That's why, look, if you want to be terrified over the Mozzie Smith pick, which there were a lot of Cowboys fans who were.
If he becomes Tristan Hill.
Your biggest worry should probably be that because when you hear the discussion about him, man, he's a freak athlete and he's still raw, but he's got all this ability. It was similar discussion about Tristan Hill when they picked him.
Yeah. I never felt great about Tristan Hill.
I feel better about Mozzie Smith.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. All right, question 3. Is there a chance that Duron Bland is the best corner on the squad?
No. I mean, maybe one day, maybe we look at the end of his career, we will. He's a really good player. Stephon Gilmore was still very good in man coverage last year. Trayvon Diggs is still, to me, a top, without counting it, like without looking at it. I would lean towards Trayvon Diggs as a top 5 corner in the NFL for me.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, I don't think Duron Bland's going to step up and be top 5 to 10 corner right away, but he is.
His trajectory is pretty good after year 1, right?
I think he absolutely has an ability to be in this secondary for potentially the next decade, because I think he's a really good player who does a lot of different things for you. And I don't see regression there, but I don't think right now he can be better than Diggs and Gilmore.
I'll tell you what, man, I think he's got a real future. I don't know if he'll be the best, but I mean, I think he's going the right direction.
214, who's better in 3 years, Brian? Duron Bland or Eric Scott?
Oh, Bland.
I think Bland as well.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of really positive things about Scott, but there could be some growing pains for him.
Yeah, it's still very raw.
Yeah, very raw. Okay. Here's my next question, number 4. Is there too much pressure on Jalen Tolbert this season?
Man, that's a good question. It's an interesting one. Let me think here.
I mean, is there too much? Because after what he went through last year,
in terms of what the team is asking him to do, or outside media pressure,
everything that he's having to deal with, the fans, the team, himself, is there too much pressure for him?
This is such a straddle the fence answer, which I know you hate these.
Don't even do it. If you're going to do that,
no, but here's what I'm going to say.
Don't do it.
Let me say it. Here's my answer. Don't make me go Mike Bassick screaming here. All right. No, here's what I'll say. Is it too much? I will have to see what his mental makeup is.
Yeah.
We'll get the answer at camp. If he's having issues, if he's doing things because it clearly was too much for him last year where he's lining up incorrectly. He's making middle school football mistakes and not checking in with the side judge there. So we'll have to see in that sense. I don't think it is. I think he's going to bounce back. When we've heard him do interviews this offseason, it sounds like he identified what was wrong and addressed it.
I worry that there might be too much pressure.
It's a lot of pressure.
There's the expectations not only of his own, but the front office and the fan base, I think, wants to say, okay, the Cowboys are a good drafting team. This is a guy they thought about maybe drafting in the second round.
I think your quarterback is probably telling him,
yeah,
I need you to be better this year.
I need you to be better.
Yeah.
I just wonder if he can handle the pressure.
817 says absolutely not. He needs to perform where he's out. 787 says Tolbert does not have the mental makeup for the NFL. Bust. I'm not willing to say that yet, but I think this year will be very telling.
There's your pressure right there.
Yeah.
The fan base is kind of like, you're going to be a bust, bro.
Yep.
You're a bust. Okay, my last question for you, Robert, here on the Krusty's Corner for the 4th of July holiday. Which Scott needs to be better, McCurley or Tolzien?
Ooh.
And Scott McCurley is the linebackers coach.
Who had been demoted.
Yeah, and now is back.
Not in title. He had always been the linebackers, but George Edwards was the linebacker coach last couple years. Scott Tolzien.
Scott Tolzien's the quarterback coach.
Yeah, and Scott Tolzien's got the most pressure. To me. Scott Tolzien, like we've mentioned before, your quarterback was not happy that his coach was let go. He was not happy, and so there's
always going to be those glances.
I don't think he has an issue. I think he likes Scott Tolzien a lot.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, you're stepping into a job where your quarterback probably thinks there shouldn't be a different person standing in front of me right now.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, on the other side of that, Micah Parsons probably thinks I shouldn't be staring at somebody other than George Edwards.
That's what I'm saying. He loved George Edwards.
I'm going to say Scott Tolzien is going to be, there's more pressure on him because he's also going to be in charge of, I've been in McCarthy's system. I'm going to help communicate the concepts that he wants. And so there's I think there's more pressure on Tolzien.
I think there's more pressure on Tolzien too.
We agreed in the end, even though I straddled the fence on Jalen Tolbert.
Yeah, I hated the fact that the Tolbert answer was terrible.
All right, that does it for us today on the Love of the Star podcast. A little bit different podcast, obviously, today, as we were sharing some of the content that we had done on 105 Through the Fan on July 4th. But I hope it was something that was enjoyable for you guys, even though it was a little bit different. And I hope you enjoyed a happy July 4th holiday. Until next time, I'm Bobby Belt. He's Bryan Broaddus. We will talk to you guys later. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.